Welcome back to Mind Tricked Media. Today we're going to be talking about a book. Would you like to start us?
Yeah, so the book we're going to cover today is Star Wars Dark Disciple by Christine Golden. Basically, this book is going to cover the story of kind of what happens with Quinlan Voss, a little bit more into his background, and basically the Jedi thought it would be a good idea to assassinate Count Dooku, and to do that, Voss had to team up with Asajj Ventress. So this is a pretty interesting start to the story, so we can get right into it.
So I think we kind of wrote it down. One of the funny parts of this book, one of the only funny parts of this book was you kind of start and it shows a little bit of background. If you don't know who Quinlan Voss is, he's a Jedi Master during the Clone Wars era, and he basically kind of plays a weird role in the Clone Wars. He basically infiltrates underground dealings of beings and kind of like goes undercover and gets in and personal with bounty hunters, the guild, all kinds of stuff like that. And so it's kind of weird. They kind of start off with him being at one of these buyings and being entrusted by this guy who's a bad guy for like a year.
Mm-hmm.
And then it kind of immediately cuts to him being called in by Obi-Wan, I believe.
Yeah, because Obi-Wan suggested that they choose Voss for this mission. Well, so basically, the reason why the council thought this was a good idea, because at the beginning of this book, there's this battle that's going on, and you just see everybody die. Everybody's dying, and it's like there's so much death in the Clone Wars, and the Jedi Council, specifically Mace Windu, was like, we need this to stop.
And basically how they go about that is they narrow it down to the root of the problem is Count Dooku. They believe that if you eliminate Count Dooku, you do not have a separatist leader, and basically the war will either slow down or be stopped. And so the whole meeting of the council is they were trying to decide who, what, when, why, how they were going to go after Dooku. And the funny part I was saying is that they kind of made it apparent that they wanted to pick someone, and we all know little Anakin, and he was like, I'll do it.
Yeah, I'll go assassinate him.
Yeah, I'll go assassinate him. Sounds like fun.
I'm your guy.
And immediately they were like, that's a terrible fucking idea.
Yeah.
Thanks, though. But so basically, the person that comes to mind for them is Quinlan Voss, and it's because of how good he is at remaining undercover for months and months and even years at a time.
Yeah.
And another point that they make is that he is one of the only Jedi who could infiltrate someone to help them, because they do not believe that any of them can kill Count Dooku alone.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole premise of it is that Quinlan Voss is going to try to become friends or partners with Asajj Ventress, and since they already know she has premeditated hate towards Dooku and has tried to assassinate him before.
Mm-hmm.
So after you get through the first little bit of the book, kind of figuring out like the background of Voss, we immediately go to where they give Voss the mission, and he is kind of like, what?
Yeah,
what are we talking about?
I mean, we talk about the guy that, if there's anybody that goes off the code the most at this time frame, it is Voss. And
the guy saying, I'll do it.
Right, and Anakin, but like Voss is the guy. And it's like, he was even like, this isn't right.
This
isn't the Jedi way.
And they kind of convince him that it's the only way.
Mm-hmm.
It's, we're going to send you, or we're going to send someone else. And I mean, Obi-Wan was kind of brought up, but he's too high value of a target. He would be too noticeable. And that's something that is in Voss's resume that helps him, where there's probably hundreds of thousands of millions of people that see him and just don't know who he is, for how much he is in that like underground, deep level Coruscant.
Yep.
So basically we then get to the point where Voss is going to go after Ventress and try to sneakily befriend her and try to be a partner, because at this time she is already betrayed and been betrayed by Count Dooku and is kind of on her own. So she's just became a bounty hunter, basically. So the way this happens is we get to a point where Voss kind of figures out where Ventress is and goes after her in the sense that he finds out that she has a high target bounty and he kind of like interrupts it.
Yeah.
So something that's super interesting is he's like, he can do things that she can't understand because she doesn't know that he's a Jedi, which is also kind of cool that he can kind of like,
he kind of hid himself.
He kind of disguises his Jedi abilities,
which is really interesting because it doesn't talk about him like learning the Force ability to mask his presence from Ventress, and it's really interesting because she makes fun of him. She's like, "You're too slow. You're not agile enough. There's no way you can be my partner because you're not good enough." Like, it's very interesting, and it's like Voss is definitely capable of all these things, and she's just like shooting him down like,
yeah,
I work by myself and you're not even good enough anyways.
Yeah. So then it kind of gets to the point where he helps her collect this bounty and she sees enough use of him that she wants to become partners. So basically she starts him on a workout routine, doing specific challenges and missions that kind of like prove himself that he's even worth it to do high target bounties.
Yeah, they'll go like do small bounties and like just testing him and stuff like that. And then a part that that I think's funny is that in the bounty where he like helped her, Ventress was using a lot of flirting techniques to get to this guy, and they kind of made a joke about it. And then like it's very interesting because like they kind of had a moment where she's like, "I'm gonna teach you how to flirt," and they like kind of like sit there and flirt with each other, and Voss is kind of like,
he's kind of into it.
Yeah, he's into her. He's very much into her.
And if you've seen the Clone Wars or honestly anything in Star Wars, you kind of know what she looks like. She may have it going on for some people.
I mean, she doesn't look the same as she does at this point. She actually has hair this time. But yeah,
she has looks.
But it's really interesting. Like he like they're flirting and they're practicing the flirting, and Voss is like falling for her as they're doing this. It's kind of hilarious.
And you kind of get both sides where he also is like telling himself like, "Hey, Jedi aren't allowed to do this," but like, it's okay because I know I won't fall into it.
Right. He's just convinced like, oh, this is all just for play anyways.
Yeah, and he's like, she'll never fall for me either. It's kind of like a back and forth type thing. But it gets to the point where she thinks he's trained enough that she wants to show him her homeworld. So they travel to Dathomir, and they kind of do a bunch of different trainings, runnings, combat, all that kind of stuff. But we basically get to a point where he is leaving periodically to go talk to Obi-Wan, to where he can kind of update him on the mission. How is it going? What is he doing? What are they doing? And just progressing along through the mission. And she kind of starts getting suspicious of him and like doesn't understand like how he catches on so quickly and stuff like that. And then it kind of just gets to the point where
I think he just straight up tells her.
Yeah, they get well actually what happens, I kind of remember now, where he fakes getting drunk and she gets drunk. And the whole point of faking it is he's like pretending to spill the beans to her and kind of tells her that he has no background and he doesn't really know it and it's not important, and then gets her to spill a lot of her background.
Yeah, she starts talking about, like when Grievous goes and like kills all the Night Sisters around her. Like we get to have her be emotional for a minute, and like, because like we talk about Ventress in the Clone Wars, she was always like, oh, she's bad, you know what I mean? But at the same time, like when you start diving deep into her story, she's had a lot of things happen to her in her life that are really devastating, that it's like we don't sit down and appreciate like the fact that she even left. I mean, I know Count Dooku betrayed her, but the fact that she is trying not to be necessarily bad with all the bad that's happened to her in her life. And she really gets emotional with Quinlan and starts talking about the I don't even know what that battle was called, but when Grievous went there and just started killing all the Night Sisters right in front of her, like we get to see a lot of that, and it's really cool.
So basically she kind of figures out that he is a Jedi or has Force powers, and she finally gets the breakdown from him that, hey, I'm with the council. They're telling me to come after you. And the whole point is we need to go after Count Dooku, and he has to die.
Yep.
And she's immediately like, that's not the Jedi way.
Right. She's like, that's not the Jedi way. And then she also starts going on to the point where if you're going to do this, you can't be a Jedi
Yes.
to do this. You are going to have to embrace the dark side, because there's no way that we're going to kill Count Dooku with you still going about the Jedi ways.
Yeah. And with this, it kind of brings us to like a big point in the book where Voss, there's like a ritual that they do on Dathomir where Dathomirians who become Night Sisters, excluding Ventress because she has specific things that made it to where she had already shown that she was kind of worthy and had the abilities of like a Sith and assassin.
Mm-hmm.
So she had actually never done this before, but a ritual that the Night Sisters do is they have to awaken this thing on Dathomir called the Sleeper, and then they basically have to fight it or calm it back down to get it back into its slumber. But
they either have to fight it or they have to tame it, basically.
Yes. Which usually it's just tame it.
Right. Usually they just tame it. I mean, it's a monster. Like,
so basically in this scene, she kind of like gives him the fair warning of, if you can't contain it, you will die.
Right.
So,
well, no, she's like, if you don't embrace the dark side, you're going to die too.
Yes.
Like, you're not winning this fight as a Jedi. So it's basically the pre-test for Count Dooku. So.
Yes. So he dives into this water where this thing is, and you can't really see it. It's so dark, and he awakens it, and he's holding it pretty well. He's taming it. He's calming it, and it gets to the point where he loses it, though, because he's like floating in and out of the dark side. And basically it comes out of the water, and he's like trying to tame it, can't tame it, and she basically is like, you have to tap in, and he fucking gets in it.
Yeah.
He is swimming in the dark side.
Oh, yeah.
And basically part of the reason is she's like, you have to kill it, and he's refusing to kill it because he's still a Jedi. And she basically like, you have to kill it, and he dives deep into the dark side.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, he is full sent. Something that she couldn't even believe he dove that deep.
Yeah.
To kill this monster.
Yeah, I
Excuse
mean,
me.
and then ultimately, as you could probably guess at this point in the book, he does end up defeating the monster.
Yep.
And
while being scared of him, this is like, he passed the test of, let's go after Dooku.
Mm-hmm. And then obviously Ventress was Count Dooku's apprentice. She has a lot of ideas of where he can be. Obviously, she's never 100% because it's like, oh, he could be anywhere because there's a whole entire war going on. Like, all right, he could be anywhere. But obviously, she's going to have the best chance. So they end up going to, isn't it his homeworld planet? Was that where it was?
It might have
Was
been.
it Sereno? I think it was Sereno.
It's definitely a highly separatist planet.
Yeah.
Everyone there is a
I'm
separatist.
pretty sure it was Sereno. But they get there, and Dooku just recognizes that Ventress is there.
Yeah, he can kind of sense it, but there's so many people that she kind of sneaks up on him and was like, hello, master.
Yeah, and then they're like having a calm conversation because there's so many people around that Dooku can't just kill her right in front of everybody. So they're having like this weird, like tense but calm conversation. It's very interesting.
And it basically gets to the point where she's like, meet me on the balcony tonight, and we're going to go at it.
Yeah.
And at this point, Dooku doesn't know Quinlan is with her. So he's strictly thinking this is just against Ventress. So as this is happening, they kind of learn through Voss getting intel that he's calling battle droids up, he's calling Grievous in, and all this other stuff. And basically the whole point is Ventress is like, I'm going to go after Dooku, and he's going to think he has backup, and Quinlan's going to kill the backup.
Yeah.
And so the fight kind of starts. They start like getting into it, and then Quinlan, kind of like honestly, like kind of surprisingly, like takes down Grievous and slows him down enough, and kills some droids, and kind of like locks him into this area, and then heads up to help Ventress. And
And then the battle between the three of them was pretty crazy. Ventress gets knocked out of the fight. Do you remember
kind
how
of
she
early on?
Yeah, she gets knocked out of the fight. Well, not early on necessarily, but early on when Voss gets there. So basically, we're to a point where it's just Voss and Dooku going at it, and
He throws her off her balcony. She like hits her head super
he
hard.
does. Yeah, he does. Which also throws Quinlan like off
into
guard
rage mode.
into rage mode too, because Quinlan, through the process of getting to know Ventress and all this, her background and this and that, they do end up starting to fall in love with each other.
And on top of that, too, two things. Dooku was very confused. He was like, where's General Grievous? Where are these battle droids? And why is a Jedi Master here?
Right.
And he's kind of like, Jedi Master, what are you doing? All this other stuff. And he's like, oh, we're here for you, buddy.
Yeah.
And he's like, you're teaming up with Ventress. What is going on?
Right.
And
he basically looks at Quinlan's like, this isn't the Jedi way.
and something that goes a part of that, too, what pushes Quinlan even more is Quinlan's master was killed during the Clone Wars. And you kind of know early on that it's Ventress who actually killed his master, but she is afraid that because of their love for each other that he would not love her and maybe turn on her, that she just blames it on Dooku.
Right.
So it's kind of a weird working process. You kind of get reminded of it a little bit throughout the book. But.
So we're to the point where it's Voss versus Dooku at this point. Ventress is knocked out. Voss is in love with Ventress. They're both in love with each other. And he's like enraged now that she's like knocked out and like
could be dead.
Like he's not 100% sure yet what's going on. And he just goes after Dooku. And
Dooku's a little scared.
Dooku is a little scared. Dooku starts to lose to Quinlan. Quinlan gets the upper hand. He takes over the fight, and he gets to a point where he has the kill shot. Dooku loses his lightsaber. I can't remember if Quinlan had it or not. I think he actually has it in his hand with the other one. And I think he has it like crossed over his neck. And you know Dooku with his like smooth talking words and stuff, he's like, this isn't the Jedi way, basically. And it throws him off guard, and then pretty sure that's when Grievous gets out.
Grievous and the battle droids escape and then go after them.
And then obviously they lose that. Voss ends up getting captured by Dooku. And Ventress tried to save him, but there were just too many battle droids, and obviously Grievous and Dooku are there now. Like, yeah, Ventress didn't stand a chance. So Ventress had to flee from this fight, and was like, she's very distraught too, because she's like, they have Quinlan, and there might not be a chance that he's even alive after this.
Yeah, and she loves him to a point that she actually kind of understands that he is with the Jedi Council and reporting to Obi-Wan. So she actually goes after Obi-Wan to go, she goes and finds him and being like, Voss is in trouble.
She basically meets him at one of their meeting like times at like a bar. They just go to a bar so they can basically hide. And Ventress shows up to Voss's like time slot, and Obi-Wan's like, what the hell are you doing here? Yeah. It's like, where's Master Voss at? Like, what's going on? And they get to a point where Ventress decides to go after Voss because Obi-Wan doesn't fully trust her. They still don't all fully trust each other.
They also meet with the council first, though.
No, they don't. Not at this point in the book. Ventress goes to save Quinlan by herself. So Ventress goes to save Quinlan by herself.
Oh, Obi-Wan and Anakin go back to the...
Yeah, they go back to report it, so everybody's on the same page.
And basically they conclude that they have to go, like, you need to go with her.
So in the process of them doing that, Ventress goes back and finds the prison cell where...
It's on his ship.
No.
Yeah, it is.
It's still back on that planet. I think it's on Serena where he still is at this point in time. I know where you're at in the book. You're a little further ahead when Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ventress go after him. Ventress goes after him by himself. And she finds him in a prison cell. And she opens it, and what she sees is not Quinlan Voss anymore. It's his eyes are Sith yellow, and he had found out from Count Dooku, because Count Dooku was kind of like keeping him held captive, but also trying to like sway him. Yeah, and they have like a dinner together, and he shows hologram footage of Ventress killing his master. And so Quinlan Voss also has a force ability where he can touch an object. It's force echo, and you can learn memories or moments from somebody that had that previously. And he also gives him his lightsaber, and Voss grabs it, and he sees in his mind and like can feel his master get slaughtered by Ventress.
Yeah,
so
Dooku basically has a cabinet full of lightsabers and other memorabilia of people that someone in his team or he's killed and is just held on to, and one of those is Quinlan's master's lightsaber.
Right. So Ventress ends up finding Voss in the prison cell, and Voss is enraged when the dark side. His eyes are Sith yellow. He starts screaming at Ventress. Like, Voss is gone at this point, and it's like he fell so far once he found out that it was like he does not love this person anymore. He's completely gone. They get into this, I want to say epic duel, but it wasn't really epic in like a lightsaber combat necessarily. It was just Voss screaming at Ventress and just going at her. He actually cuts her like side with the lightsaber. He could have killed her with like how this fight went down. And knowing Ventress, Ventress ends up fleeing because she's like, I can't fight you.
Yeah.
Like, what am I supposed to do against you? I can't kill you. I love you. And then Ventress ends up getting away, and the last thing she sees is Voss and Dooku standing side by side, like Voss is Dooku's apprentice now. And that's when Ventress goes back to the council, and they're like, oh, we need to go save Voss. Like, the council is all ready to go save him. And Ventress is like, he's gone. There's nothing left of Quinlan Voss. He's gone.
Yeah. And they kind of like, I feel like Yoda kind of is understanding, but the rest of them are kind of like, well, even if he's gone, we need to get him back.
Yeah, it's like we can't have him. Like, if he's also like teamed up with the Sith, we have to eliminate him too. This is a do or die mission. Like, we have to get him. Yeah. Or we're in big trouble after this.
So that's where I was getting to, basically, with the team up between basically Obi-Wan and Anakin are going, and
they bring Ventress.
Ventress is like, well, I have to go.
Right.
So
yeah, it was really funny when I was listening to this. I was like, Ventress, Obi-Wan, and Anakin are teaming up right now to go save Quinlan. Like,
it's kind of weird.
Imagine that trio being like, oh yeah, we're gonna go save this guy. Like, okay, like, who thought in a million years that them three would team up together? Like, and so they go and they find Voss imprisoned. Like, he's like chained up, not chained up, but he's like how Obi-Wan is like.
He's not chained, but like
it's so you're like chained up and you are like
you're stuck via like force field-esque with binders.
Yes. And they also like for like Dooku or for Voss like working with Dooku and stuff, they actually really did torture him. He got tortured. Like, they were talking about, because he's got a little bit darker skin, that they were like, he's pale white. He's lost so much weight. Even the tattoo color of his, like, the yellow tattoos on his face were faded. Like, he was, like, dying. Mm-hmm. And really just torturing him.
Yeah, so basically this is a retrieve and rescue mission, because they're not listening to Ventress saying that he's gone. And, like, obviously she's the only one that can really attest to how far he dipped.
Right.
But so basically, this is what I was saying, though, is that the three of them went after Voss, who was imprisoned, and this was on Dooku's ship. And they basically, like, go in there. There's not, like, too big of a fight. They kind of...
The fight is between Anakin and Dooku, but that isn't the main point of what's happening. Like, we get to see, like, Anakin gets a cut off with Dooku, and it's just Anakin versus Dooku. We don't get very much of that fight, and Ventress and Obi-Wan are going to go save Voss. They're trying to find Voss and save him. Yeah. That's when we find him chained up, and he looks like hell.
Yeah. So, basically with that... they ended up getting him out. Anakin flees out from Dooku, and they make their escape. Mm-hmm. So, upon that, they take him back to the temple. He's disgusting looking, basically. Mm-hmm. and they kind of like
Well,
good.
Voss has the Jedi like fooled. Like he's just
Yes.
Voss at this point. Like we were talking about how he was so enraged, he had Sith yellow eyes, like he was gone. And when they go see him, he's Voss. And everybody's confused, like what's going on? Like, you
Yeah, he's
know,
clearly not what Ventress is saying he is. No
Right.
one's believing Ventress, and Obi-Wan and Anakin kind of feel a little weird about it,
Mhm.
but you kind of just like you know what's happening, but you can see why everyone is convinced because he's just boss. Like he's just why would someone that's working with someone be beat and starved?
Yeah, and then Ventress is like, I can't be a part of this anymore. But before Ventress leaves, I thought it was really nice of the Jedi Council for her doing all of this and then saving Voss. They pardoned her
Yeah,
of all of her crimes that she's done throughout the Clone Wars, which I thought was really cool. They finally sat down, and even if it was brief and like it wasn't in depth at this point, but they finally got to a point where they're like, okay, Ventress isn't a
She's not
problem.
who she was.
She's not a problem anymore either. Like she's a lot better of a person.
Because they were not happy that she came to the temple.
Oh no, they were treating her.
They were not happy with Obi-Wan either.
No, they were treating her very poorly when she was there, and yeah. But before she left, she got a pardon, which I thought was really cool. And then as she's leaving, Voss runs after her to be like, "Oh, I'm not.
I'm sorry.
I'm still myself. Like, I didn't mean all that stuff that I did." I'm like, but in my head, I'm like, you literally cut her side with a lightsaber. Like, come on, dude. Like,
He's full in the Dooku like coerced me. He turned me. I couldn't help myself.
yeah,
And he was like, I never like. He almost just like I never should have dipped and stuff like that. Dipped into the dark side at least.
well, and then Ventress kind of blames herself too because
she should never have done it. She should have told him no.
well, she also made him tap into the dark side, and she kind of also blamed herself on top of this for all of this happening to him because like if she didn't make him do that, he would have never have turned the way he did. So we get this conversation between Ventress and Voss, and it's very heartbreaking because like they fall in love pretty deep, and it just immediately gets like torn apart, and it's kind of sad because Ventress is heartbroken from all this, and it like Voss acts like he cares, but at this point he doesn't really because he's fully
he's full bipolar.
well he's just completely on the dark side at this point.
Yeah.
Just fooling everybody except for Ventress.
Yeah. So basically with this, they accept Voss back, but there's tons of conditions because of what he's went through and the claims made by Ventress. And she kind of, it's kind of heartbreaking because she just kind of like, she's like, I have to leave him here. He can't, like, they had planned on him even leaving the Jedi because they loved each other so much. So she kind of just like, I have to leave him here. This is the only place where he's going to become Voss ever again. And basically they're like, yeah, you can't do shit right now. They are like, you are going to have to basically relearn to become a Jedi through meditation and training. And basically he is on like house arrest in the temple.
Yeah, he gets really supervised for months on end.
Yeah, and his main supervisor is Obi-Wan.
Well, at the beginning it was everybody. And then it gets put onto Obi-Wan because they kind of make this about Obi-Wan's responsibility because he's the one that decided it should have been Quinlan Voss to go after this mission.
Yeah.
Which is where they finally get to a point where Voss has kind of passed all the tests. He seems to be himself. So they decide to go on a little mission where it's a separatist area, I believe, and it's like medical supplies, I believe. Something
and it's
like that.
abandoned. It's weird.
Yeah, it's like an abandoned medical supply, like
and like a meteor, an asteroid or something.
yeah,
it's
like
very weird.
It's in the middle of nowhere. Or no, I think it was actually like a separatist one, and they like abandon it,
and they don't know why.
They don't know
trying
why.
To figure it out.
They're trying to figure out why.
And so you kind of learn about this character a little bit, but then you kind of get more about him. There's a character that goes by Desh, and he's a Jedi Knight, I believe.
I think he's still a Knight. He was like Quinlan's best friend.
Yeah. And you kind of get him at the beginning, how when Quinlan gets back, Desh is kind of confused because they're like, why does the council want you? Like, there's such an urge. There's like commotion in the temple, and basically they think it's a very good idea for Desh to kind of accompany Voss
Mm-hmm.
to try to get him, like, if there is something wrong, maybe he'll like talk to Desh. Maybe Desh can get it out of him. So with Obi-Wan's supervision, they send him and Voss, which then becomes him, Voss, and Desh, and then of course Anakin
Mm-hmm.
going after this asteroid medical center that just supposed to have a bunch of supplies in it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of the first like big mission that Voss is allowed to go on.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, like I said, it has to be overseen by Obi-Wan. But they kind of like they're looking through this medical supplies, and like it's like good supplies. They were like really confused on why it was left there. So, I believe it's Cody, right? Cody's in there, and I think Cody's with them, and
Probably.
they send in a bunch of troops, and the whole point is they're sending in troops to kind of get the supplies and get them out of there.
Yeah.
They're trying to evacuate as much of it as possible.
What's really funny about it is that they're doing all this, they're getting the supplies, they're like trying to make sure everything's okay, and then all of a sudden, of course, Quinlan Voss discovers a bunch of bombs, right? Just randomly.
It was weird from the get-go because he basically just goes, I'm going to go explore that way.
Yeah.
Just
and
because.
Then all of a
we
sudden
don't know what's
he's
down
like,
there.
I see a lot of bombs. And
Yeah,
then
he calms.
And then they all go off.
Yeah. And basically he might have taken his ship back there. I think he did. And because they're in Jedi Starfighters. And he's kind of like, dude, there's bombs. Oh my God, we need to get out of here.
Yeah.
And like he kind of makes it to where he's like, I'm staying. I'm gonna get all you guys out of here. And Obi-Wan and Desh are kind of just like, no, you're coming. We're not gonna leave you. And they get it out of there in a nick of time.
Yeah,
and
they barely they could have all died.
That, and they didn't get barely any of the supplies
Yeah,
out. Like,
they didn't get anything.
it was kind of weird. As soon as they started bringing in ships, they're immediately like, "Hey, dude, we're all gonna blow up. All this is gone." And you kind of get it from there, where you're just like, "What? Like that's weird."
Yeah, that's like it was basically just a big booby trap for them, and it was interesting that Voss was so willing to go on this mission, which brings me to a point that it's like, how was Ventress the only one that could see the dark side within him? Nobody had a clue. And then when they get back from their mission, Yoda talks to Obi-Wan, and basically Yoda's convinced that Quinlan's gone to the dark side.
Desh can kind of like see that like
Desh is
not Quinlan.
Desh is the only one at this point that's like, what is going on with Quinlan? This is not the guy that I grew up with, and
I love his voice that they give him.
Yeah, but they're to a point where they get back and it's only Yoda and Obi-Wan, and Yoda just basically tells Obi-Wan, yeah, he's fully in the dark side.
And so like some of the other council members kind of start eyeing at it, and they actually send in teams to kind of like look over what happened, try to see if where the bombs were made, whose bombs they were, and all this other stuff. And it kind of comes out that like they're Republic bombs that can be triggered by someone in the Republic and stuff. And they're like, well, someone in here set those off.
Yeah, so they finally realize that Quinlan probably did this, and they get to a point where they like kind of use Quinlan as well, because they still want to kill Dooku, and they know Quinlan can lead them to him. He goes and tries to find Ventress again, because they tell him it's a good idea to go fight Count Dooku again, to go actually complete the original mission, even though they know that he's not with them anymore. So it's like, okay, he goes and meets up with Ventress at a bar, I believe, and of course it's at a bar, and they have a couple drinks. They reminisce a little bit, and Ventress finally starts to believe Quinlan's actually Quinlan again. And they get to a point where he's like, all right, we got to go complete this mission. So they get back together and team up, and then they go after Dooku again. So they're heading to go get Dooku, and it was really weird because when they got to where Dooku was, Ventress basically asked him, "What are you gonna do if like the Jedi come?" And he's like, "I plan on them to." And I'm like, there's something not right here. If he's like, because he's like at the same time, like Ventress finally trusts him again, but he's not telling Ventress everything.
Yeah, he keeps just like hinting at that. It's like he's like lying. He's like not just telling her, "Don't worry about it. I'll tell you later. I'll tell you later. I'll worry about it later."
So basically, Anakin and Obi-Wan get sent after them to see what's going on and this and that. So Voss gets to where Dooku is, and he's like, "Ventress, you got to stay with the ship." And she's like, "No, I'm not leaving you again." And he's like, "I need you to be like the getaway driver, basically."
Yeah.
And then so he gets on to the other ship to go face Dooku again, and they meet face to face, and Dooku's like, "Oh, hey, buddy," you know what I mean? Like they're friends now, right? And then Voss goes after him again. They start fighting, and Voss kicks Dooku's ass.
Yeah.
Like
surprise.
Well, not surprise. He
surprise attack.
Surprise attack. Okay, but yeah, he kicks his ass, and he's like enraged in the dark side again.
See, this is where it gets super interesting because they kind of spoke about how like we know Dooku, we know that there's this Sidious guy, and the whole point is Quinlan's like, "Take me to him, take me now." And I know you know where he is.
It's really funny because
he's kind of playing both sides.
This entire fight, where he's like, "I demand you to take me to Sidious. I want to be Sidious's apprentice." Obi-Wan and Anakin are watching this happen.
They're hiding.
They literally see and hear this happening.
Yeah.
And
they kind of missed the part though where he like goes after him and like is trying to be good about it. They kind of only hear the bad stuff, which in no defense to Quinlan, but like it could have helped them a tiny bit.
Right.
But so basically that's the entire point, and they never even get to Ventress, do they?
Because Ventress is still waiting at the ship.
Yeah, Anakin and Obi-Wan finally cut them off.
Yeah, they cut them off, and they're like, you guys are both under arrest. Dooku is like lost this fight. He's on the ground, and Voss is there like, "Oh, hey guys, I was just like getting him," and Obi-Wan's like, "Voss, we know you fell. Like we know you're not you anymore." So they arrest both of them.
And so basically, what's happening is Obi-Wan and Anakin basically have to like go report, and some clones and Desh and a couple other Jedi are basically like getting ready to transport Dooku and Quinlan. And while this is happening, Voss is kind of like talking to Desh and kind of like trying to like get him to like be like, "Hey buddy, it's me, like what are you doing?" And Desh isn't having any of it.
Desh didn't have a single second of that. And then Cody ended up talking to Desh, and Cody was like, "It's okay, Desh, sometimes you have people in war that'll betray you." And he references Slick back in the Clone Wars, where Slick betrayed the clones, and it was really sad because the clones are supposed to be like 100% brothers, and Slick betraying them like really hurt them, and Cody's really hurt by it, and it was sad to reminisce back on that.
Yeah, and it shows again how like you can see how upset Desh is. Desh is very upset with, because he knew something was off with Voss, but he still didn't want to believe it, obviously. But so basically what ends up happening is Dooku kind of like makes a gesture like, "Hey dude, we're getting the fuck out of here," and immediately they beat the shit out of a couple clones, and
they killed everybody except the Cody was the only one that lived.
Yeah, and he was banged up.
Yeah, he snapped his leg completely.
Yeah,
like he couldnn't move anymore.
Yeah, they end up, I think, killing the other Jedi too and stealing their lightsabers and going after him. And basically, like, Desh is one of the like last people there, and Desh, like, he doesn't want to kill Voss, obviously, but knows he has to stop him. And the species that Desh is have, like, this stinger on them, and basically the stinger is very venomous and has, like, a toxin in it. And Desh is, like, a last resort after losing his lightsabers. Like, okay, I need to get Voss, and maybe if I get him and then we can get him somewhere quick enough, I can still save him. But what ends up accidentally happening is Desh goes to stab Voss, and accidentally Voss like gets out of the way, and Desh stabs himself, and basically starts like, I don't know why it came to me that like maybe foaming at the mouth, but you could just see him like starting to die. The venom is like taking over his body, and yeah, it's fucking heartbreaking.
Yeah, that's basically the end of that scene, and then
dude, it's sad that because Voss doesn't give a fuck in that moment.
He didn't care at all. And then it cuts to the next scene where it's the council talking about how Voss just absolutely signed his own death warrant.
Yeah.
And Obi-Wan's like still conflicted with that. Even with all the things that Voss has done, Obi-Wan's still not on page.
Yeah, because I mean, going after Dooku was hard enough. Now going after
Voss,
a Jedi Master.
Yeah, Obi-Wan was not okay with really any of this. Yeah. And so Voss, Dooku get picked up by Ventress. Ventress finally comes back into the picture because she was basically just the getaway driver waiting on everything.
And she's kind of just like, what's going on? And he's just like, go, get out of here, go.
Yeah, Voss is
like, once they jump to hyperspace, Ventress is kind of just like, okay, what's going on? Something's up. And she walks out and she was like, why the fuck is he here?
Yeah.
And it's Dooku, obviously. So, what were you going to say?
Yeah, she gets really pissed off at Voss because Voss is just not telling her anything.
Yeah.
And I mean, he kind of used the own tactics against her that he learned at the beginning of the book with the flirting techniques, because he basically flirted his way into be like, "Oh, don't worry about it. It's okay. Like,
this is how we're gonna be together forever. This is how we're gonna get away."
Yeah, that's basically And then you go ahead.
No good. So basically, they flee to this separatist planet that has like this giant glass-made, crystallized castle, and the whole point is Dooku is pretty badly injured. And they basically land, and they're like, we got to get to this castle. They'll understand. Dooku, obviously being the separatist leader he is, he was like, the clones let me in and we'll be protected in here. And at the same time, Anakin and Obi-Wan are following them with a battalion.
Oh, yeah.
With a battalion.
Yep.
And basically they're trying to figure shit out in the castle. Dooku's trying to get Voss to turn on Ventress and stuff like that. And he basically is like trying to figure out how they can contact Palpatine or Sidious and go. And as this is happening, they start to hear bombs because the clones are bombing the castle.
Yeah, there's literally just a crazy battle happening outside of this castle, or like where they're hiding at.
And so they start heading down the levels to try to get to the bottom floor and get out of there somehow. And one of the bombs lands directly in front of the glass like staircase they're going down and stuff, and they like fall down and they're like super hurt, especially Dooku.
Dooku got hurt really bad. Ventress got hurt really bad. Voss was pretty okay compared to the other two, but the other two got hurt really bad when the castle started coming down. And Dooku sees this as his opportunity to strike back and be like, all right, like, I need to get out of here.
Yeah.
And that's right when Anakin and Obi-Wan enter where they're at, and they get to see this happen. So Dooku goes after Voss. He's like, I need to kill this dude because he wants to take my spot as Sidious's apprentice, and I'm not going to let that happen. He unleashes deadly force lightning at Voss, and Ventress, loving Voss, jumps in front of it to save Voss, and Dooku just unleashed this lightning strike on her, and it was awful. She took a major beating from this lightning strike, and Voss obviously was heartbroken that it happened, that Dooku kind of just flees, gets out of there. He gets out of there, right? Yeah, Dooku.
Well, yeah.
He gets out of there, yeah. And Voss is just holding Ventress on the ground, and Ventress is sitting there just dying.
Kind of like telling him that, like, all the things that you can think of, the I love yous, the I needed to see you, like, fulfill coming back. I know there's good in you. I know that, like, this was my life's mission. I needed this. I needed closure. And she was like, even though Dooku isn't dead, like, I have closure for the shit that I've done in my life.
And then the adventure, or Voss, is just, like, sobbing, basically, as she's talking, and he tells her, you brought me back from the dark. I never thought I could come back from this. I fully was gone, and your love saved me.
You get like a really sad moment where she was like, she's starting to like see the light, and she's like, my sisters are waiting for me, and it's like, oh fuck, dude, come on, like it. Yeah, like we've read a lot of books, and there's sad shit that happens in Star Wars, and like I never thought in a million years that I'd be like, wow, dude, Ventress is like trying to get me to tear up right now. Like I like
I was heartbroken reading it. I've really liked getting more of Ventress's story. I feel bad for Ventress, and I really like Ventress.
She was put in every possibility to be dark.
Yeah, and the fact that
yeah.
she basically at the end was relatively good.
Yeah.
And like a kind, loving person that you never would have thought could have happened. Yeah. And Voss was just distraught, and yeah.
Yeah, so basically after that, though, Obi-Wan and Anakin get them out of there, and they kind of do like...
They kind of like cuff Voss.
Yeah,
they be like, hey, we're going to take care of Ventress's body. Don't worry about that. We're going to have to treat you like a prisoner. As of now, we saw what happened, and they go in front of the council, and they talk. Obi-Wan just basically stands up, puts his foot down, and is like, listen, this was a mistake from the start. Shouldn't have happened. All of this is our fault.
Yeah.
And
as much as they want to blame Dooku, Voss, Ventress, he's like, no, this was us.
This was our fault.
This is almost 100% our fault.
Yeah.
Should never have done something like this. And
it
was
was also really nice. Obi-Wan stood there in front of everybody and talked very highly of Ventress. It's like, she did X, Y, Z in the Clone Wars at the beginning, and for her to become this person that she became, like,
as much as Voss's downfall, she saved a Jedi. Mm-hmm. She saved Voss.
Yeah.
And so basically, like, Voss is like, it's kind of weird because he's like imprisoned, but like he's almost gets like community service for the temple.
They want to bring him back. I mean, he is back. Like, he is back. Ventress brought him back from the dark. He's not tapped into the dark side anymore. He's back to himself, but they still have to treat him as if he could turn at any moment, because, they can't have that happening. But so basically, they come to the conclusion where they think it's a good idea to take Ventress back to Dathomir to lay her final resting place with the rest of her sisters. So we get back to Dathomir, and they like place her body in like a river of some sorts, and Voss asks for a moment alone, and Obi-Wan's like, do you have something to say?
But even before that, like, obviously when she was like she had gotten hurt in that battle and stuff, and like obviously was like fucked up. And one of the things that we mentioned was they like took her while they took him, and like the people at the temple, according to Voss at least, did a magnificent job of like covering up her wounds and letting it heal and making her look as beautiful as she could.
Right.
If I'm not mistaken, she was wearing the one dress. They make a big point about the dress in the show, or in this in the show, in the book when they go to meet Count Dooku for the first time and go to attack him, where Voss falls in love with her not just because of who she is, but how she looks. He thinks she's one of the most beautiful things he's ever seen, and it's a very emotional scene with him where he's crying like, she looks so beautiful. Like, they did such a good job. Like, not like they took care of her, and I'm so happy that they took care of her. And you get like an even more emotional scene as he's laying her in the water, and you can kind of like understand that Dathomir is accepting her back.
Right. Like, there's a scene. So Obi-Wan left Voss to be alone to have his moment, but obviously Obi-Wan's like, I gotta watch out for you still. I can be a little bit away from you, but I have to watch you. And as she's like floating in the water, some of the green mist from the Night Sister's magic starts appearing, and Obi-Wan comes running over, like, what's going on? Like, what's happening? And Voss is like, I don't know. And as it's happening, you hear little voices that are saying, sister. She's with her kind.
Yes.
And it's very sad and heartbreaking. And Voss is like, this is where she needed to be. And I am forever grateful that you guys let me bring her here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's you don't like,
and we know at this point, like we talked about Voss being completely back from the dark side. We know he is, because Dathomir is so deep into the dark side that it's even like watching the one he loved float away. He is completely calm. He doesn't turn. He's perfectly content.
And it's a very touching. It's one of those things that, like, you never thought a character would leave you so like heartbroken over what happened to them.
Yeah, and it's like, especially somebody like Ventress, like,
yeah, like it's a whole new perspective of her character that you don't see, obviously, but like it like that book, like, because like it was one of the last book that we read. We've read a couple now where like I was like, whoa, dude, like, why am I at work half crying? Like,
it was so sad. Like, the whole last 2-3 chapters of this book was just full of sadness, and it was very emotional. And it's like, we've read a lot of books that are just like badass. Like, this book was just heart-wrenching. Yeah. And like the fact that we felt this for Ventress was pretty crazy. And I thought it was really cool at the end of this book too. We had like a thought from somebody on set of the Clone Wars, which I've never seen something like this. It was
like George Lucas's niece,
yeah.
I believe.
And she's like a director, or like,
she helped write some episodes because Ventress is, I guess, her favorite character.
Yeah, she did a lot of
the leading role female antagonist who like is the bad girl who looks crazy and does all this thing. So it was cool hearing her perspective, that we were honestly supposed to get more Clone Wars Ventress. And
all of this book was supposed to be a Clone Wars arc.
Yeah.
That we didn't get.
Yeah. Which would have been cool for multiple reasons.
Yeah, for like this, I think this book is really good read, and I think it would have been amazing Clone Wars episodes to see.
Yeah.
And like very heart-wrenching ones too. Like, it'd have been very good to see. And I also liked a little bit at the end where it was talking about how like his niece, I think, learned so much from the Clone Wars, and like it meant so much to her being around all the people with Star Wars and stuff. I really like that. And I hope there's some more books that come out in the future that bring a lot more stuff like that at the end or whatever, so we can have like feelings as well from that. I think that was pretty cool. Yeah. But overall, I really enjoyed this book.
It was definitely a good one.
Yeah, it was one of my favorite reads for different reasons. Obviously, like we said, like we have read a lot of badass books, but like this one was sad, and it was a really good story.
Yeah.
So
and definitely a builder off of characters that we know, but done in a way that we had never seen. Especially with, and this not only Ventress, but like Quinlan's kind of like a mystery character too, and like you get so much of him, and like you don't see that at all in Clone Wars. So yeah, I think it's another side of a bunch of characters that we love and how they went about it, and like behind the scenes stories that aren't talked about the Clone Wars, even though how long the Clone Wars is. Right. So yeah, it was a really good book.
Yeah, I think that too.
Yep. So yeah, this is probably gonna be it for today. Next week, or the week after, maybe we're probably gonna start, maybe every couple episodes we're gonna do one of these like book reviews. I feel like there's I'm honestly not the biggest reader, but I have fell in love with audiobooks because of this. I could sit in at work and listen to books, and they've been fantastic. They've opened up new views of how I look at Star Wars. And if you don't want to sit and read a 10, 12, 14, 15, 20-hour book, you can just watch these and kind of get an idea of stuff. So yeah, this was Mind Trick Media, and have a good day, guys.